Group of Interest 001, Chicago Spirit. When folks ask where I studied, I just laugh at them. I don't believe in formal education. I never spent a day in a classroom. Yet I'm one of the most successful men in this city. Boys and men who could be spending their time productively are instead forced to waste years of their lives stooped over books, trying to snatch some trace of intellect for themselves. What the schoolmasters don't tell you is that genius is something you're born with. I may not know calculus, but I run the largest business of its type in the country. I may not be able to name every tribe in Africa, but I can turn a man inside out with a snap of my fingers. I can't give you a scientific explanation for how we perform the miracles we do. Then again, nobody else can either. In my business, me and the Ivy League boys are equal in everything that is, except power. That's something I have plenty of. Richard D. Chappell, Correspondence, 1925. Overview: GOI-001, the Chicago Spirit, also known as the Spirit. Years active: 1895 to 1938 and 1990 to present. Unconfirmed. Known leadership: Richard Davis Chappell, 1871 to 1953. Charles Ferris Derringer, widely thought to be a pseudonym, 1878 to 1950. Hogarth Mintz Cartwright, 1869 to 1929, and Julius Raleigh Magellan, 1865 to 1939. The exact year and circumstances of Magellan's death are still disputed. Summary: Chicago Spirit was an organized crime syndicate based in Chicago, Illinois. The group operated locally during the first 2 decades of existence, but later spread to other major cities in the United States as a result of the wealth generated by its bootlegging operations during the America's Prohibition era. The Spirit employed numerous individuals with anomalous capabilities, created and exploited a number of anomalous artifacts for use of its business, and was owned by one Richard D. Chappell, a Type C reality bender, SCP-46-ARC. History: In 1873, Chappell immigrated to Chicago with his parents at the age of 2. The first record of his anomalous capabilities was an incident in which a passerby witnessed Chappell, then 11 years old, anomalously exsanguinating a rival newspaper boy. The boy's body was recovered from the Chicago River the following day, but the local police did not pursue the case. Chappell would in later years claim that the boy's death had been an accident. In its original incarnation, the Chicago Spirit was a legitimate business, founded in 1893 and located on Chicago's South Side. Spirit operated as a typical bar, providing patrons with alcoholic beverages and occasionally offering live musical entertainment. After 2 years of making a little revenue, Chappell had the idea to start a second line of business on Chicago Spirit's second floor, a secretive trade of unnatural novelties. During the subsequent years, Chappell sold over 600 anomalous artifacts to buyers in Chicago and the outlying areas. Many of these objects are believed to have been created by Chappell himself. This new venture quickly attracted a number of wealthy collectors and prestigious members of Chicago's elite, which in turn had the added benefit of greatly bolstering the popularity of the establishment downstairs. Still, Chappell remained largely secretive about his anomalies, adamantly refusing to acknowledge the anomalous side of his business in public, but never utilizing his reality-bending capabilities in the company of others. As the Spirit prospered and grew, Chappell expanded his practice to include criminal activities such as extortion, planned robberies, and attacks on rivaling business owners. By 1899, approximately 410 men were working under Chappell. It was around this time that locals began to refer to Chappell's organization as the Chicago Spirit, taken from the name of the bar that served as the group's headquarters. Most of the Spirit's membership was comprised of common thugs and petty thieves. but the group's leadership mainly consisted of men who possessed abilities similar to those of Chappell himself. According to local tradition, Chappell routinely walked through the streets of Chicago, striking up conversations with people he encountered and employing those he found to have preternatural skills. Among these individuals were Charles Derringer, SCP-32-ARC, Garth Wheels Cartwright, SCP-39-ARC, and Julius Sawteeth Magellan, and contained, presumed neutralized. By 1900, Chappell had firmly established himself in Chicago's criminal underworld as a charismatic and ruthless leader. As the spirit increased in size and scope, more anomalous objects were used in routine operations. Very few of these anomalies were contained during the group's active years, due to the Foundation's limited resources during this period. For the most part, the Chicago Spirit acted independently from other criminal organizations, although groups were known to occasionally interact with varying degrees of hostility. A notable exception was the famed Chicago outfit leader Al Capone, who strictly forbade any form of interaction with the spirit, stating that he wouldn't have anything to do with those men. This stance was presumably influenced by previous outfit leader Johnny Torrio's disastrous attempted raid on Chicago Spirit's original building in 1919, which Capone witnessed. The group continued to strengthen and grow through the 1920s, aided by the extra revenue generated by the Spirit's expanding number of speakeasies and similar establishments, made possible and profitable by the ban of alcoholic beverages under the Volstead Act. Records indicate that from 1921 to 1933, the Chicago Spirit was the largest anomalous crime syndicate in the Western Hemisphere. Despite the Chicago Spirit's seemingly immense power and prosperity, the Foundation's O5 Command approved a raid on Chappell's home, citing intelligence reports that claimed his anomalous capabilities had weakened. The raid proved successful. Chappell was captured and placed into containment, along with 155 SCP objects pulled from his personal collection. After the capture of their leader, the Spirit members soon disbanded and were recruited by other syndicates. The few who remained faithful to the Spirit and the resources they possessed were eventually acquired by Marshall, Carter, and Dark in 1938. Addendum: a collection of private journals allegedly written by Chappell were recovered by Foundation personnel in 2008. Notably, the entries frequently mention a partner by the name of Mr. Knight, whose departure from the organization in 1933 resulted in the vulnerability that made Chappell's capture possible. Despite the constant references to this individual, no other existing records indicate that Chappell had a close business partner, nor are there any documents that support the existence of a Mr. Knight within the group. However, the journal entries are consistent with statements made by Chappell during post-containment interviews, in which he frequently expressed that he did not possess any anomalous properties, and that the anomalous work was carried out by a partner of his who abruptly quit the organization, changed his name, and fled the country. Resurgence: the Chicago Specter. Known members: the Inside Man, 2017 to today. Thought to be the de facto leader of the group, reportedly possesses psionic capabilities. The Rookie, 2017 to today. Thought to be an enforcer for the group, prime suspect in the murder of Farhan Jahanian and the robbery of the Bank of Eurtec. Anomalous capabilities unknown. Murakama Killswitch, 2017 to today. Thought to be the getaway driver for the group, anomalous capabilities unknown. Summary: a relatively young paracrime organization, the Chicago Specter had come into frequent conflict with the Global Occult Coalition, primarily through its continued operations in Eurtec and elsewhere. Eurtec, a pocket universe operated by a GOC member organization, touted primarily as a more legitimate anomalous community in contrast to 3 Portlands. The Chicago Specter has 3 known members, all of whom are suspected to be anomalous in some way, and its organizational structure and operational capacity remains unknown. History. From 1938 onwards, the Chicago Spirit ceased to exist. Instead, small groups and individuals continued to operate at a low level all throughout the rest of the 20th century. For decades, it had been rumored that Richard Chappell had hidden away a fortune worth billions of dollars, which would only be accessible to the individuals or group which best embodied the Chicago spirit. Until the end of the 20th century, however, nobody had the resources to do so. The true New Age of the Spirit began with the collapse of Prometheus Labs in 1998, when a vast amount of paratech flooded into the black market. Street-level paracrime reached an all-time high, as both individuals and corporations began to engage in paracriminal activity and seek out Chappell's fortune. Many of these organizations named themselves after the Chicago Spirit. From Japan, where the Yakuza had created the Chicago Sake, a bid to reclaim their power, to Ireland, where the Chicago Guinness traffic in substances both human and fairy-made. One of the more notable organizations of this ilk is the Chicago Specter. Despite being composed of only 3 people, the audacity and scale of their heists have begun to garner attention from across the globe. Although the Spectre has known interactions with the Foundation, they have come into conflict with several external groups of interest, such as the Servants of the Silicon Nornir and Alexiva University. The group has additionally come into conflict with other members of the paracrime community. The Rookie is suspected of having murdered one Farhan Jahanian, a former distributor of illegal biomedical augmentations and enhancements within Eurtec. The group's motives remain unknown, as do their operational capacity and the scale of their operations. GOC records indicate that demonics play a heavy role in the group's operations. It is suspected that the group may be augmenting themselves somehow to carry out their operations.